This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show, and our Moonlighter for today is the very best umpire in Major League Baseball. Heck, he's probably the best umpire in the entire world. His name is Pat Hoberg. As you guys know, we have been big fans of Pat Hoberg for a long time here on the Moonlight Graham Show. This is his second time here on the podcast. And last season, 2021, umpscorecards.com rated Pat Hoberg the best umpire in Major League Baseball, which came as no surprise to us because he has been the best umpire in baseball every year at every level he's been at, and he's the best umpire alive in the game today. So it was fun to connect with Pat, get him on the podcast before first pitch and opening day of 2022 happens. So just a couple of weeks ago, while the lockout was still going on, Pat came over to the house, he sat in studio, and we broke down what's like, not only during this lockout, but we talked all things umpiring. And as you guys know, I'm not a big fan of instant replay. I'm not a proponent of robot umps. And Pat, now that he is the best umpire in baseball, I think he's loosened up a little bit to be able to talk about some of these topics a little bit more. We even talked about the replay room and what that's like to sit in the replay room in New York City as we're all watching those games on TV and, what that experience is like. So I think if you're a baseball fan, you're going to really enjoy this episode with Pat Hoberg. He's great in it, and it just got me, even listening back through it, it got me excited for baseball season. And the umpires are such a big part of that. And they're one of those unheralded role players that you see every day in a baseball game, but you hardly ever notice. So, Moonlighters, enjoy this episode with Pat Hoberg. Of course, special shout out to our sponsors, The People's Company. Check out Andrew Zelmer and Matt Adams over at thepeoplescompany.com. They are the best in the business at buying and selling farmland all throughout the Midwest. Enjoy today's episode with Moonlighter, Pat Hoberg. But before we get to our interview, Moonlighters, are you or someone you know moving down to Kansas City? Well, if you are, the one realtor that we trust and that you need to be calling is the great Brian Sandvig. As you well know, Brian Sandvig is our producer here on the podcast, and there is not a better residential real estate advisor down in the Kansas City marketplace than Brian Sandvig. Call Brian Sandvig, shoot him a text. Hey, DM us on social media. We'll get you connected with Brian if you can't find him on all the socials, but he is there and he is active, and he is your Kansas City realtor, so give him a call. Pat Hoberg, looks like he came from a haircut.
I did.
Are you coming straight from a haircut here?
Straight from a haircut. Off the plane to the haircut to the barbershop to Tim Flattery's house.
So recently, Pat, Joe West retired. Maybe the most famous baseball umpire of the modern era. I think there's been some umpires through the years that went to the Hall of Fame that I think were famous before our time. But Joe West in our lifetime's got to be the most famous umpire. Don't you think?
Yeah. He has my vote for probably the best, greatest umpire of all time, too. I mean, just looking at his resume, I've had the privilege of working a couple times with him. And I can honestly say there's not an umpire that I've ever worked with that cares more about the game of baseball and does things for the good of the game, even though sometimes it's not perceived that way. But
he catches a lot of crap.
Yeah, and I don't really know why it doesn't. I mean, any time that you're put on the pedestal or on the biggest stage of anything for that many times, you're going to be hated and known. Just look at any other sport. You got, Ed Hockley, you got
Dick
Jerry
Bavetta.
Crawford, all those guys that are working the finals and working league championship series and World Series year after year. People are going to find something that they don't like about you. But Joe is instinctually probably the best umpire I've ever worked with.
Really? I always think that people, it always seemed like every game Joe West would do something that made it about Joe West.
I think that's all perception. I really do. He has a personality for sure, and I think that's one thing that the game is kind of starting to get away from. For the better or the worse, that's on a different level. But having a personality, there's always going to be people that don't like it or do like it, but out safe, ball strike, fair foul, Joe West is probably one of the greatest umpires of all time.
I think part of it is because people started getting to know who Joe West was. So they were looking for it a little bit. And you're right about the personality. Baseball especially, but all sports need personality in the game. It makes it fun. Like the basketball ref, the college basketball ref from Omaha that highlights his hair. What's his name? Hollywood Higgins. John Higgins, right? He's kind of in that.
One of the most
he's so
hated,
good.
But he's works the biggest games in the Final Four and the Big 12 games that are on TV every night for a reason, you know?
Right. Have you ever met John Higgins?
I have not.
No. Seems like a guy that would be fun to drink with. Like, I bet John Higgins has got some stories. Similar to I bet Joe West has got some stories. And I remember I saw a picture with you one time. It was like Joe West, Dale Murphy. You guys were at like Dale Murphy's bar down in Atlanta. And you guys are you're having lunch or whatever you were doing. And I was like, man, I bet that is a fun table to be sitting at. What's it like to have a meal with Joe West?
You know, that's one of the best parts about working with him. Not only is that going on the field, you're going to do what's right and he's going to have your back and do all that, but the people that recognize him and the stories that he has and the generosity that he has towards kids and people looking for autographs and stories and stuff is something that I've taken away from him and I'll never forget. I could sit there and listen to him talk, tell stories for hours on end, but it's really cool meeting some of the people that he knows and that he came across throughout his career.
You ever heard him sing a song? Like, does he bust out the guitar? Is that something he does, or
no? But I've heard stories that he karaoke's in certain towns, but I never got the privilege of
that. Would be a treat.
Yeah,
wouldn't it just be great to like walk into some honky?
He did give me a CD though.
He did? Did he sign it?
Yeah.
To Pat.
Yep.
Keep calling strikes. Or call him how you see him, Joe West.
I actually just framed a picture of him and I working together in 2017 in Toronto. It was a conversation about putting and reading greens. It was in the outfield between innings, and I thought that was kind of cool. So he signed it, and I got it going up in my basement.
When he retires, what text do you reach out to Joe? Do you give him a call? Do you send him a text?
Yeah, I actually did call him and just told him what a great career he had and how I was lucky enough to work with him a couple games, and he was really thankful and appreciative, and that's Joe. And I'm sure there was lots and lots of other people that reached out to him as well. But man, 5,300 plus games and all those World Series and playoff games. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's something that'll never, ever, ever happen again.
What do you take from him? Like, what did he do really well that you as an umpire take from him?
Yeah, just having the guts to do what's right out there. A lot of times now it's easy with social media and stuff to do the popular decision just to not be in the limelight. Joe always did what was right. And, you can argue that in some spots that his judgment wasn't great, but you can do that with any umpire. But Joe had the guts to make the unpopular call, even though that it was correct. And that's something that I take away from, and it's something that I hope to improve on throughout my career.
Yeah, baseball is going to miss Joe West.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So last year, Field of Dreams game, the only Major League Baseball game ever in the state of Iowa. Des Moines has been a hotbed for umpires through the years, but this was your game. You get tapped to do this game. How did that come about for you to be like, did you lobby for this, or did the umpires reach out to you? How did that come about?
So it was actually a couple years in the making. Eric Cooper, when it first came out that there was going to be a game in Iowa, Eric Cooper reached out to Major League Baseball and just said it'd be kind of cool. At the time, there was 4 Major League umpires from Iowa, and he had kind of started the idea of having all 4 Iowans work the game. Well, then obviously COVID hit, Coop passed, and a year and a half went by, and I wasn't supposed to actually work that game, but Major League Baseball switched around my schedule to allow me to work that game. And then the crew that I was working with actually suggested that I work home plate. And I thought that was a really cool gesture by them. And I got to be honest, it was the most nervous I've ever been for a game. Just looking up towards the game. And as you know from Iowa, it's all anybody talked about for the days and weeks leading up to it. But it was a day that I'll never forget.
Yeah, you and I ran into each other about, I don't know, a couple hours before first pitch.
I looked frazzled, didn't I?
Yeah, you had like a bunch of gloves in your hand, and you were walking out in front of the house at the Field of Dreams. My brother Neil and I just got in. We were smiling from ear to ear, running around like crazy. We were like little kids. And I literally just ran into you, and you were on your way, I think, to the field or something, and then I think I was looking to talk or whatever, and you're like, "Hey man, I got to get out of here. I got a game to do."
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy day. I actually overslept and was late getting to Dyersville, and had to get a police escort into the one way in, one way out, and had to block traffic. And I was able to finally get there, and I was playing catch with my dad and brother, and doing a charity thing for some kids, and then meeting Kevin Costner. So a lot happened in there right up leading up to game time when I saw you.
Did I meet you after Costner, or did you?
No, we met him right after that.
Really? Just tell me about Costner.
Really soft-spoken guy, really cared about umpires in the game of baseball. You know, he was thankful for our job, and just really cool guy, really down to earth. He loved Iowa. He loved the Field of Dreams movie, obviously, and we caught him right before he was getting ready to go on air, so we didn't get too much time with him. But got some pictures with him. He signed some balls for us, and pretty cool.
That is really, really cool. And I think I sent you a couple of pictures that day. And I know in your job, like, part of your role is you're a pro, and you're probably very rarely starstruck because you're around these guys in the baseball world all the time. But this was a different game. And everybody you talked to, whether it was Aaron Boone or the Yankees or the White Sox, whoever it was, they talked about how it was different. And I think they literally meant that. Like, they felt that it was different. And I took a picture of you before the game, and it was Rob Manfred, Kevin Costner, A-Rod, Poppy, and then you, like, ready to go on the field before the game, all in a tight little window, behind the backstop there. And I don't know if you even noticed it, but it was such a cool moment where, like, all of the eyes of sports were on Iowa that night, and especially on this little window that you are. And you're, whether people notice you or not, because a lot of times people don't notice the umpires, but did you feel more eyeballs that night, or feel like you're on a bigger stage?
No question. And that was part of the reason why I think I said I was more nervous for that game. I've had playoff games and, nationally televised games and stuff like that behind the plate, but I was more nervous going into this game, and I think that's definitely one of the reasons. I knew a lot of people that I was close to in Iowa, we're going to be watching, that don't normally watch too many baseball games. But the other thing was, I just wanted to, I'm kind of getting a little emotional just thinking about it, but I really wanted to make the profession in Iowa proud, knowing that an Iowan was there, and just walking out there and seeing the corn, and, seeing the commissioner and seeing the field that they put together in our state was, something that I'll never forget. And everybody that I talked to, even after the fact, Yankees players, White Sox players, coaches, all said that it was above and beyond their even expectations, which that tells you something. I mean, it was a perfect night with the sun setting, hot air balloons, home runs into the corn. I mean, all that stuff is pretty special.
It wasn't your best game.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I had my best game.
I remember, and I was always wondering,
how'd you know?
I'm a Hoberg stan, right? And so, like, people, when people think you don't have a good game, then they yell at the Moonlight Graham show, and then we back you. We got your back on social media, Pat. And I always, here's my backing of all umpires, not just you, but you and I have talked about this before, but the box you see on the screen on TV is not the actual strike zone box. And it's not the one that you're graded off of, and it's not the real strike zone. It's just a fake TV thing, right?
That's correct.
It's probably pretty close, but it's not exact, right? And so it's unfair to the umpires to show that up like it is the gospel. And that stadium in particular, and I haven't gone through exactly how they set up the cameras, but I thought it was even more unfair to have a box up in a makeshift Major League Baseball stadium where you have no idea how long those cameras have been in place, you know, the leveling of the field, all this other stuff, that there was probably a lot of calls that night that didn't fit the box. And the box has its own flaws, but on a typical Major League stadium, they would have, you know, the box is just a little bit different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, basically the comment I usually tell people is, you know, when I first got into umpiring, which, you know, wasn't that long ago compared to some of my colleagues, but if you were judged on having a good game on if you were fair, consistent, and, you know, didn't hear much from the dugouts. Well, now that's turned to being perfect according to this TV box, which isn't really the strike zone. So it's kind of changed the way that we umpire, and it's changed the pressure and all that stuff. But it is what it is. You know, It's not like I can change it. It's not, you know, something that I can make go away or make, you know, make more important or whatever. So I just kind of deal with it, do the best that I can every single night and go from there.
I just don't see the added benefit of the game. I don't know why we have it. I think it's been around so long that we're used to it at this point, but I don't think it's bringing the right emphasis to the game of baseball. It's forcing more people that are watching the game to nitpick balls and strikes, and it's like, that's not fun anyway. Like, nobody cares. It's not providing more action. It's not providing more entertainment value. It's just getting people to gripe more about baseball. It's like, is that what baseball wants? I know, I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir here. So, yeah, I guess I don't mind the box as a viewer, but I just don't like the social media argument that's being brought up by it. Even when you have like social media accounts like Pitching Ninja. Pitching Ninja, who's a great Twitter account, right? Great for baseball, but he's like a robot umps guy. It's like, can we just go to robot umps? And I'm like, I don't get it.
Twitter's the devil, Tim.
Twitter's the devil. Well, to that point, one of the biggest Twitter accounts, one of my favorite Twitter accounts, is like the Umpire Scorecards Twitter account, which after every game, every morning after a game or a night of baseball, at like 9 o'clock the next morning, some guy out there is compiling all of the umpire data, balls and strikes, all the calls that an umpire is making, and putting that out there into a spreadsheet. And so every game on Twitter, it'll say Pat Hoberg, 96% correct. You know, here's your consistency. Did that get onto your radar last year? Because it really blew up this past season.
I've had people send me screenshots, you know, and stuff like that, but I can't waste my energy in looking at that because it'll A, make me go insane, and B, the same people that praise you one night are going to tell you that you should be fired the next night, you know, that you have a bad game. So I pretty much umpire to what I'm graded on my scores and my machine, and the data that's out there, it's all different than what I'm graded on. Yeah. So someone will send me a screenshot of whatever Twitter or whatever thing's out there, and it'll be 5% different than what I got graded on, you know? So I don't really take much into account to what people are posting and doing because I don't think that they have the same data and technology that I'm being graded on, and so I really don't put much weight into it. I think it's all flawed data, to be honest with you.
It probably is. And, well, just so you know, they love you. The umpire guy loves you. And so because you're good. And I think you were number one last season in consistency. So you were, according to their data, you were the most consistent umpire according to their data.
Again, so, I think it's flawed data, but I'll take it.
Yeah, you take it. So the robot umps argument. We've heard that it could potentially be getting into AAA this year. Well, it is coming into AAA this year. What the hell? Like, what would it be like to be a AAA umpire and all the balls and strikes? You still have to stand behind home plate and I guess make the calls and judge foul tips and things like that. But now the computer system is calling balls and strikes.
Yeah, I have not seen it in person or demoed it or anything like that. Some of our guys have, but I think the biggest thing that will be different is the instinctual stuff that you do behind the plate. You know, your foul tips and check swings and ball strikes, like it's all part of it. If you take out the focus of
being locked in on every pitch
of judging the balls and strikes, you know, repetitively, It'll take some getting used to on doing the other stuff, second nature, I would think. But again, I haven't done it, and I don't really know what to think about it. If baseball and in general and fans and media and owners and whoever it is, players, whoever wants, if they want the robot strike zone and they think that it does better than what we do, then I guess if it's for the good of the game, I'm all in on it. I think that if you told me right now that I wasn't going to miss a pitch for the rest of my career, I'd sign up for that. Now, if it's to the expense of action and entertainment, which you got to remember, baseball is entertainment, right?
Right.
So if it, in the human element and all that stuff, if it's going to take away all that, then I think there's an argument for that. But that's pretty much where I kind of stand with it. And some people want it, some people don't, and I'm just basically doing what they tell me.
As a sports fan outside of baseball, so you're watching football, you're watching basketball, do you think, what areas of instant replay do you think other sports have gotten right? Because I always argue that, like, after 20 years of this, I'd be more inclined to get rid of all instant replay. I think it's been a net negative. Like, I know you watch a lot of hoops guy. You watch an NBA game now, the last 2 minutes take an eternity. Everything is replayed. Even the Hawkeyes were playing last night. They replayed. I don't know if you watched the Hawks. I know you're a Hawk fan. They replayed a play after time had expired and the game was over, and then they put Michigan back on the line to shoot 2 free throws and put 0.2 seconds back up on the clock when Michigan was up 3.
I think I'll basically just speak to baseball because I don't really know much about, you can argue replay and that. You can argue, and I'm on the firm side that, us as umpires, like, we're pretty good. We're not perfect. We miss calls. Obviously, we never want to be the reason that a team wins or loses a game. But one could argue over a 162-game season that I'm not going to say they even out, but that the best teams are going to win and make the playoffs. Now, I don't ever want to have a play named after me or, or something like that, So that part, you always have that part, but
I just think we're always trying to speed up the game, right? More action, quicker games, pace of play, all this stuff. And you look at, after a season, how many hours did we waste reviewing plays in every sport, but baseball in particular, that we never overturned? It's just a complete waste of time.
Did you know that in baseball that there's one review every 2 games?
That is overturned?
No, just a review.
Oh, is that true? Every 2.5, what'd you say?
2 games. There's one review.
So it's not very many.
No.
Yeah, you compare that to football and basketball. Like, football is ridiculous. They're reviewing so much in football now, and basketball is getting that way with the flagrant fouls, the fouls at the head, balls out of bounds late in the game, and it's hard to watch sports. It's forcing me to, like, be on Twitter while I'm watching sports more because sports are less exciting with instant replay.
I would tend to agree.
I'm on my soapbox.
Yeah, I know.
Right
I
now.
can't really comment too much, but you got to remember that sports is entertainment. But in this day and age, everything's over scrutinized and everything should be correct. So that's kind of where we are as a society with everything.
Are you afraid of robot umps taking your job?
No, because they always are going to need umpires for many things, like you said, and also the integrity of the game. Of people trying to cheat the machine or just stuff like that. So,
where we're at right now, we're in the middle of a lockout. We don't know when this is going to end. I think we're going to have baseball this year. I think people are optimistic. I think they're frustrated that it's dragged on this long, but I think we're going to have baseball. How long does it take you to get ready? Like, if baseball said, hey, we're not going to have spring training, regular season's going to start in 2 weeks, like, how much time do you need to get ready to be regular season opening day ready?
It usually takes me 2.5, 3 weeks. And that's 3 or 4 plate jobs, because you're working the plate every 4th day. So usually about 8 or 10 base jobs and, 3 or 4 plate jobs. So a couple of weeks. But like in COVID, we did 12 days of spring training, and I think we worked 2 or 3 plate jobs going into it. But that's really where I start to feel like I see the ball well, and I'm back to like my instincts and the speed of the game and stuff. So I think I could go out there and do it after a week, a couple plate jobs, but I don't think baseball would ever do that, especially with the players. They need their time to get ready too.
Could you cram it in? Like, could you do something where you work the plate 4 times in 1 week? Or is that like too taxing on your body? Like,
I mean, it's taxing going from nothing to working that. So, I mean, it's definitely taxing. Could I do it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I don't see a scenario where that would happen because you got 76 umpires you got to get ready. So, I mean, there's only so many games you can have to do that.
Right. I'm saying if they they do a bunch of split squad stuff or work games on backfields with minors and, things like that.
We could make it work for sure.
Realistically, just how exhausting is it to sit behind the plate for 9 innings? Squat behind the plate. You're not even sitting.
So physically, I'm still young,
You look good,
and that part isn't that bad yet. Obviously, doing it for 20 years and down the road, we'll see. But I can't really describe to you until you do it mentally how exhausting it is because, like we talked about, in this day and age, you're supposed to be perfect. From pitch 1 to pitch 350. So every pitch mentally, like you can't just like start thinking about something else while pitch is coming in because it might be a slider that misses the outside corner by 1.2 inches, and I can't call that a strike because I'll get killed on Twitter, as you said, and then people will be hating the Moonlight Graham show. So
can't have that.
That part of it, it's every single pitch has to be like dead on focus to try to umpire to this machine that I'm graded on, and I can't really explain how mentally difficult that is.
I believe it. I mean, even just being locked in on, doing a podcast interview, right? Like being on for like an hour is hard. And you got to be on for 4 hours at a time. And you're judged every 12 seconds or every 30 seconds or whatever it is.
Right.
Do you need that mental break too from working the plate?
For sure. Yeah. I tell people all the time, they ask me, what's your favorite position to work? Well, when I work the plate and I feel like I have a good game and, the game goes smooth and it's whatever, that's very satisfaction. But if I had to work the plate every day, I would be mental wreck. It just wouldn't be healthy because it's just that kind of taxing.
Is it fun?
I love my job.
Yeah.
I love going out there. I love the lifestyle. I love, being on the field with some of the best athletes in the world. There's pressures and, stuff that go along with it, but it's what I signed up for. But I absolutely love my job.
What's the number one characteristic that leads to a good umpire?
I would say approachability.
Ooh.
And not necessarily admitting when you're wrong, but listening and handling different personalities. There's certain guys you can talk to. There's certain guys you need to be more firm with because they'll just treat you like crap, and kind of just being an approachable person about your call, about a situation and stuff like that. You can't always just be the bad cop. You can't always be the good cop. You kind of got to, see how it plays out to get the game going on smoothly. But that's one thing that I kind of take pride in is just trying to be honest with these guys. If I make a mistake, if I miss a pitch, I tend to admit it. And some guys, I think, appreciate that. But that's something that I definitely do I try to do every time I step on the field.
Do guys ever say to you, like, hey, look at that one and let me know?
Oh, yeah, all the time. There'll be a pitch and they'll come back the next time up to bat and say, hey, I looked at that pitch, it was just outside. Now, I've had people lie to me about that before too, which isn't fun because then you think that pitch is outside for the next 2 hours and it wasn't. But most of the time the guys are honest, and again, but they're going back and looking at the TV box.
Right.
So you kind of just take it, whatever, but
and then
that happens all the time.
How do you square that up with them like the next day? Because you don't have a whole lot of chance to talk to them, but throughout a series, you do get a chance to talk to some of the
There's
guys.
times that the next night, I'll see that guy that we had a conversation the night before, and I'll say, hey, I looked at that pitch, and my bad. I can't miss that pitch, or I'm sorry, or whatever. Or I'll say, hey, I looked at that pitch, if I had to do it over again, I'd call the same thing. And, they'll say, well, I appreciate you looking at it, or, and again, that's part of some guys you can do that to, some guys you can't, because they'll be either more mad at you or whatever. So you just kind of, every player's different. Everyone's got a different personality, but that's kind of how it goes, yeah.
And I think that's one part of the game that I really love. That's a big part of the human element. When we mention human element, people think, well, you're just okay with errors. No, not necessarily. I don't think people really understand that umpires play a role in the game, that if you're just the standard fan, or if you're just watching baseball or basketball or football through Twitter, you think you know it because it's very black and white. But I think people in the game care less about all this other stuff than the fans on Twitter.
I would completely agree with that. And a lot of guys come out and they'll say, man, you guys have a hard job, and I appreciate you looking at that, and you do a good job, don't worry about it, and just stuff like that everyone that else sees, or whatever you read online is, this guy 90%, he stinks, or whatever. There's a lot more, I wouldn't say forgiveness or whatever, but they understand how hard we try. I guarantee you every umpire that goes out on a major league field tries to get every pitch and every call right. It's just not really possible.
How do you know when the right time to call a rain delay is?
That's above my pay grade. I'm not a crew chief yet, and that's all crew chiefs.
Oh, that's the crew chief.
Yeah.
Because you watch some games, right? And they'll have the meteorologist guy or the field crew guy coming on between innings. They got the iPad out looking at the storm rolling in, and hey, we got lightning in the area, we're going to give it. And then other times it's like pouring out, but there's no lightning, and and they keep playing.
So I've been in earshot of some of these meetings before, and a lot of it has to do with, do the teams play again? A lot of it has to do with how much did they water the field before the game? How much, can we play through and all that? And then obviously the radar, they say, hey, this heavy blob here is coming and we're probably going to have to pull it. But, the groundskeepers are really good in the big leagues, and they kind of have that rapport and that human element with the crew chiefs, and they try to come with the best decision. But as you know, sometimes it's really hard if it's the bottom of the ninth and a one-run
right.
game, and, is it fair to pitch in the rain, so it's definitely one of the more difficult parts of the job.
Is that one of those things where do teams just want to get the game over with, or do teams not want to play when it's raining?
I think it depends, because a lot of these guys are still playing for, contracts and stats and stuff. They don't want to have to go out and pitch in the rain or have a bat
True.
taken away in the rain. And so I think all that goes into consideration. So, I mean, that's more of a player's question than an umpire's question, because our job is to get the games in the most fair condition, whatever. So
when you're working the replay booth, is that in New York?
Yes.
The replay. So what's that like? Is that a rotation for you guys? Like you rotate through to the replay booth?
Yeah. So replay is part of our schedule. So we'll go Philadelphia, Boston, and then a week in New York for replay, and then Washington, Chicago, whatever it is. So basically in New York, we have our home office, and there's a replay room, and there's a bunch of screens with about 6 or 8 stations, I guess, and each umpire is assigned 2 games at a time. So on a Tuesday night, when everybody's playing, Friday night when everybody's playing, it's a pretty packed room, and you'll have 6 umpires in there at a time or so, and everybody's got 2 games going on, and once a close play happens, it buzzes on that station, and then the other umpires kind of go over there, and we all kind of look at it together to come up with a decision. But, yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
Is that a fun job or boring, or what's that like?
Because it's different than,
when you got into umpiring, you didn't think that was going to be one of your jobs.
Correct. That's so it's a different skill set. But again, we've been trained pretty well to what angles to look at, and we've been doing it now for this is 8 or 9 years that replay's been around. So you kind of know once a play happens what camera angles are going to be the best. And these technicians that we have in New York already pretty much know, and the slow motion ones and all that. So you're just trying to piece it together as quickly as possible so it doesn't take long. That's a big thing, is the time on the headset and the pace of game. But all in all, it's just another part of the job, and it's definitely different.
Let's talk hoops.
All right.
A couple off seasons ago, Pat, you and I were, this was before I had kids. We go down to the gym and we get some shots up. We play one-on-one game. I mean, that was the last time. That was probably the last time I felt really good about my basketball game was that time.
That was fun. That was competitive.
When was the last time like you got out and competed like that on the basketball court?
Man, it was probably around that time when our men's league team won the championship. I can't remember if you were a part of that tournament run. I don't believe that you were, but
don't talk about it. That was when I broke my foot.
That's right. That was probably the last time, and we tried to run it back, but then COVID hit. So men's league 2019 or 20ish was probably the last time. But do
you still get up and down at all?
No, I haven't played in a long time, and I kind of miss it. But funny story, the third base coach for the Indians, Mike Sarbaugh, he's a good guy. He every time he sees me, somehow he found out that I played college basketball. Every time he sees me, he goes, how's that three-point jumper looking, or ask me how I finished in my league or whatever. So I'm going to have to tell him that I haven't played in 2 years now. So,
are you done?
I'll never say no, but it's looking that way. But, I mean, I don't know. Basketball leagues around here have kind of faded out, it seems like, especially with COVID. Dying. So, but if one comes around, I would probably entertain it.
I've played twice over the last month. Morning game, 6 a.m., that kind of deal. And first time I played great. Shot about 80%, 5 games, hit the game winner after the last game, walked off, and I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it for me. That was the greatest thing ever. And then knee swells up, don't play for a couple weeks, and then I go back out there, and I knew, sure enough, if I'm going out there again, I'm going to play like crap this next time around. And, it's just, there's something about basketball. It's just the best game. And I love baseball, and I love sitting in a dugout. I love playing baseball. But there's nothing quite like 5 guys, 10 guys on a court that all know how to play the game and work together. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, and, we got pretty good basketball players around here in Des Moines. I mean, as you know, you probably play with some of them still. But, I love basketball. That's why I played it in college. And obviously baseball is my profession now, but basketball is still one of my favorite sports for sure, especially to play. And, I miss it.
Who's the guy that you watch now, like NBA or college, that you're really keying into right now?
I'm trying to think who the best shooter is right now.
Like what I see, you're a poor man's Duncan Robinson in my head. Like
that's a good one. I like Duncan Robinson.
Just do everything to get open, and just a hair trigger release. Really, really quick release. You give him any daylight, it's going in. Like I see you. If you would have been 6'7", you had a chance to be Duncan Robinson.
I like watching guys like Seth Curry and guys that kind of come off the bench and move without the ball and get it up there. But those are my kind of players. Duncan Robinson for sure. But I was just too slow and not very athletic. But I could put it in the basket every now and then.
If you came around 10 years later, like is there a different Pat Hoberg basketball story? Like when it's all about the three, when high school coaches are more about the three, there's space in the court more.
That's a good question. That's a good question because in college
it was still working through the post.
Yep, in college we ran the old Wisconsin swing offense, with post guys, interchanging out, and it was more of a slow tempo. But now with the analytics and the threes and the 3-point line being backed up, I think it probably would have helped me, but I'm okay with my mediocre NAI career, and we'll just leave it at that.
How often do you think about playing hoops, though?
Quite a bit. It's something that I like doing, and obviously it's fun playing with guys that you like. I still play with a lot of my guys at Grandview, and we all get along good, and we all kind of know each other's games, and it's fun. I mean, you're part of the team.
I know. I mean, there's nothing quite like it. And I think basketball, more so than baseball, gives you a chance to play into your 30s, into your 40s, like with that group of guys. And the team that we've had of those Grandview guys in rec ball, like we had a good run because everybody had their role. They played well together. And it's just a blast as you get older to still have some of that. Like, oh, Sunday nights, 90 minutes, and I'm just going to feel part of a team again.
Exactly. It's like that competition and stuff that, you guys like you and I still like and miss. And
right.
Yeah, that's something that I miss for sure.
Even just when someone else like takes a charge or gets a steal or dives for the ball and you got to run over and help, and you got to get them up. You got to help pick them up,
That's your job, taking charges. I don't take charges.
I know.
I come help you up, though.
Yeah. I mean, but just like feeling like a team is such a big part of it.
For sure.
It's why doubles pickleball is better than singles pickleball. Just because you have a teammate. Like, that's all we want in our 30s is to like be a part of something, like we're watching TV alone. We're driving to work alone. We golf on our own sometimes because nobody else will golf with us, and then just be a part of a team. It's a blast. And I feel like you and I share, some of the same joys in that.
I get my competition fix now on the golf course, but
how's your game?
It's improving. Yeah, I've been getting lessons and stuff, but yeah.
Does the umpire crew golf together?
Very rarely because of our travel schedule. It's tough to travel with golf clubs, so you can definitely go rent and play on the road, but a lot of umpires are stuck in their routines.
Are you one of those umpires stuck in your routines?
Yeah, I mean, I'll play golf every now and then, but I couldn't play every series or whatever. But it's tough to travel with our clubs because especially now with COVID and a lot of canceled and delayed flights and stuff, we're jumping around terminals and nobody wants to have to wait at the airport for your bag to come in, and just it's kind of more of a headache and stuff because our travel's so hectic.
Last time we had you on the pod, we talked about your daily routine when you're in just a city, right? And you talked about you like to get out and you take a walk around the city. You like to do the crossword puzzle in the morning. Have you added anything to the routine over the last couple of years?
I've just kind of gotten more into going out and seeing the cities. It's kind of relaxing to me. So, I'll stay in my kind of favorite spots in each city. And again, more outdoors, just getting out, walking, running, working out and stuff like that. But it's something just to kind of keep your mind away from the stresses of the job and stuff like that. So no, my routine's pretty much still the same.
Yeah, sometimes I think about your lifestyle, and you've got a pretty good gig where you get half of the year off essentially, but during that half of year you're a guy in your mid-30s, but you're essentially like a retired guy throughout half of the year. What's that like to have maybe nobody else or in your age bracket have the same schedule as you, even when you're not in season?
I hang out with a lot of 50 and 60-year-olds, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I got a golfing group down in Phoenix, and I am the youngest person by about 30 years. So, but it's the lifestyle is something that I like. Like you said, people always ask, are you excited to start work? I love my job. Like I said, once baseball starts, it doesn't stop until the end of the season. So, once it starts, it's go time. You don't have many days off. You miss a lot of stuff. Travel's hectic, and the off season is just kind of the time to get away and unwind and do kind of stuff that you enjoy and gets you away from the stresses of being a major league umpire.
Are you excited for this year?
Here we go.
Do you think that, when do you think you hit your peak as an umpire?
Well, I hope I'm not there yet, but
is there an age, or Joe West was really good into his 60s and 70s, right?
So I think it's a combination of obviously eyesight and reaction time and stuff like that diminishes throughout your year, but you see so many plays and pitches and things on a baseball field that they almost become second nature. And I talked a little bit about Joe West's instincts. There wasn't a play or a situation or a pitch that Joe hadn't seen 1,000 times, so he always kind of was a step ahead of where the play was going and what kind of play it was going to turn into. And that's something that you can't really teach. So as far as a peak, I hope I'm not there yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've got, in sports, you think that most guys are going to be done by the time they're 40. And you're working in sports, yet 40 is kind of just the beginning for umpire, for the good ones. And you could stick around a long time. And that's exciting to think that like 20 years from now, you'll still be involved in Major League Baseball, God willing.
God willing, yeah. Yeah, I love the job. I love the profession. I love the sport. So, yeah, hopefully 25 more years of this and call it a career.
Here's where I would suck as an umpire. Well, beside the fact I'm a blinker. I blink when they swing behind the plate. I don't know why, but if you put me behind the catcher, I blink. In front of the catcher, I don't blink. But you see so many pitches, say 350 pitches a game. And at once a week, maybe you see a balk. And it's like a glitch. Like you know it when you see it, but you got to call it really quickly. And I'm always impressed by how quickly umpires call the balk, because even as just somebody watching the game, or I've spent a lot of time at the game, like sometimes it takes me a while to be like, what did I just see? What did I just see there? Oh, that was a balk. And it might take me 5 seconds to react to it, but you got to be there right away, even though like one of the last 1,000 pitches that you saw was a balk.
Yeah, that's definitely you described it really good, because it happens. So basically, you're trained to watch the pitcher, right? Some you're trained to watch certain things because you kind of know what he does, but basically you're watching the pitcher, and I can't tell you how many times that throughout my career that I've called a balk and then go back and look at it on slow-mo, and it looks like he didn't balk. So then you're extra slow to make sure you see what you see, and then it's too late, because you can't call it 10 seconds after it happens. So it's definitely a gray area, and you see it, and then you kind of like, oh, was that a balk? And, and then it's too late. But then sometimes it's just instinctually you see it and you call it, because that's kind of just what you're looking for.
Is there a rule that is misunderstood?
Oh, there's a lot.
What's the most common rule that you think is misunderstood?
Well, I would say probably the runner's lane interference between home and first. People think just because just because they weren't in the base path at the beginning, if they get back to it, stuff like that. Like people have many perceptions of why we call it sometimes, why we don't call it sometimes. I think that's probably the most.
And what is the rule?
The rule is that he has to stay within that 45-foot lane in the chalk unless it's in his last stride of reaching the base. Once you start out, in fair territory, you have to get back in it. Now, the interference isn't if the catcher makes a bad throw. It's if the interference interferes with the first baseman taking the throw. So if the catcher throws it 45 feet above the first baseman's head,
there's no interference.
Even though the runner was way inside, there's no interference. If the runner is inside the lane and the pitcher and the first baseman could have easily caught the ball and retired the runner, then you have interference.
So if I'm a right-handed batter and I lay a bunt and I start 5 feet in the grass,
you got to get in the lane.
By when?
By the 45-foot line.
By the 45-foot line. And if I'm not in the lane by then,
you're subject to being called out for interference.
Only if I interfere with the first baseman, though.
Only if the throw
Yes,
only if you interfere of the first baseman receiving the throw.
What about the base paths for the other bases? Is there such a thing?
The base runner determines that. So the base runner determines his path. He can round it, but and then once the fielder reaches to tag him, that's when the 3 feet thing comes into play.
Got it. What did you think? What did you think of the Javi Baez play? Was that last year when he ran backwards towards home plate?
Yeah, crazy.
Like, did you talk to the umpire who had that?
No, but we all talked about the play. Just because we see all the crazy plays and it happens throughout the year. But yeah, just kind of a goofy play and. Yeah, it happens. That's kind of it's kind of the stuff you can't really prepare for.
Yeah,
I mean you're prepared for, but you can't say when it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, for things like that, then, like for umpires continuing education throughout the year, do you have like an umpire group that is compiling the craziest plays that happened over the past month?
Umpiring department within Major League Baseball, our bosses, yeah, they're taking crazy plays and every Wednesday sending them out to us and how they want it officiated and stuff like that. And also we have rules we've used, throughout the winter and stuff like that. So all that stuff keeps you sharp and it kind of prepares you, because then you can take little spins off each play. Well, what if this happened and then we do this and that? And our big thing is just that we want to know on a gray area play what they want called, what the office of the commissioner wants called, because we'll enforce it whatever they want. So
as part of your getting ready for the season, do you dust off the rule book? Do you literally go back and read the rule book again?
I read the manual and go through the rule book, every now and then, but pretty much I know the rule book. During the spring training and during the season, we'll have plays happen that we'll go back and just refresh ourselves. But I've read the rule book so many times that I pretty much know it. But we take rules reviews tests, so then that's kind of partly of reading the rule book. But no, I don't necessarily just, hey, spring training's around the corner, I'm going to pull out the rule book, because I pretty much know it.
Do you know where you'll be at for opening day?
We just got our schedule today, but I can't remember.
Subject to change, maybe?
Yeah.
So is there for you, butterflies for opening day? What's that like for you entering another season?
Opening day always brings butterflies, I think, for everybody. And if it doesn't, then it's probably time to hang it up. I still get butterflies walking on the field every day, especially working home plate. And I kind of hope that never changes, because obviously that means that I care about my craft. I care about the game. I want to be perfect. So yeah, it's definitely good butterflies. Takes a couple innings or whatever, couple pitches to kind of get locked in and get going. But yeah, they're definitely there.
Well, Pat, I'm glad we were able to connect before the season here. It's always good to see you. It's always good to talk baseball with you. It's just so cool to. I'm a baseball guy. I love the game, and I love turning on the TV and seeing you behind the plate. It's just one of the thrills. My dad's always looking out for you. My brothers are always looking out for you. We'll text, hey, is Hoberg doing? Hey, Hoberg's on the Kansas City. Turn to the Kansas City game, and it's just such a treat. And the other part about it is you're so good at it. I
appreciate that. I do. I appreciate the support, and obviously having friends that like the game and know kind of what I'm going through and stuff like that. I appreciate it.
Well, just good luck. Keep up the good work, because it's so fun to watch you. It's so fun to see the game through your lens. I think that's the other thing what I like about it is that I never thought about the umpire spot before talking about it with you. I always just viewed it through my own lens as a player. And then seeing the game through, it's really kind of helped me look at the game in a little bit different way. And so best of luck this year. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with Pat Hoberg. And you've probably noticed in the first episode we had with Pat, and then this one again today, Pat and I love talking about hoops. And even though Pat's a Major League Baseball umpire, he played college basketball over at Grandview University in Des Moines, and he started his career over there as a bench warmer. And then his last couple of years, he got into the rotation. He's a great shooter. And I'm talking not just a good shooter, a great shooter, like one of the greatest shooters you've ever seen. And he got into the rotation his last couple of years. In his senior year, once he started getting more minutes, and he had to earn his minutes early on playing JV, and he was putting up 30 points a game on the JV team. Finally, on the varsity squad, they said, we got to put Hoberg in the game. So his senior year, he finally gets some minutes, and he ends up being an All-American and Midwest All-Conference selection. His senior year ended up scoring 891 points during his Grandview basketball career. Most of them happened in that senior year. So if you've listened back to our episodes with Pat Hoberg and you're wondering why we're talking so much about basketball, it's because Pat is one of the best basketball players in Des Moines when he laces him up. And if you got him on your men's team, you're going to win the league. So that's just a fun fact that I thought you, the listener, might want to know about Pat Hoberg as you're watching Major League Baseball games coming up this spring and this summer. Thank you, of course, for listening to the pod today. Thank you for subscribing. Follow us on social media. Special thanks to the Moonlight Graham Show team, my brothers Andy and Neil, our production guy, our producer, Brian Samick, who's the best in the business, Brendan Gargano, who does all of the artwork for the podcast, and then Tommy Griffin, the trusted co-host, who, of course, is the co-host for a lot of episodes and also does all of the write-ups for these episodes. Thank you to the Moonlight Graham Show team, and have a great week out there, Moonlighters.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.